The Apothicon and Keeper languages were far and above one of the most unexpected and unique additions to Black Ops 3 that added an incredible amount of flavour to the already deep lore of the world. It made it stand out amongst other games. How many games out there create an entire language specific to the game? It shows just how immersive and ambitious the project was. It was used to really cool effect in Black Ops 3 Zombies and occasionally in Black Ops 4. But what if I told you it was actually created for a far greater purpose? I'm not just talking about lore here, I'm talking about raw gameplay. It's been a real oddity for some time that the Apothicon language has so many specific words that just never crop up in the game itself. Drinking a perk, passing minutes or rounds, etc. Well, today I'm here to give you some insight into why this incredible fictional language was actually made by Treyarch, and how it almost turned Shadows of Evil into the single most replayable map of all time, had the original intention for its creation materialized. It might be useful to discuss a bit of context about what exactly the Apothicon language is for those of you who weren't around during Black Ops 3 or perhaps didn't pay much attention to this admittedly niche aspect of the storytelling, or maybe you simply need a refresher since it's been literally almost 10 years since its release. I had to refresh a lot myself just to prepare this video. Essentially, the Apothicon language is an alien language spoken by said Apothicons, and is hinted by context clues to actually be the original language spoken in the universe. By contrast, the Keeper language, spoken in the present day of the story by the Keepers, appears to have come later. They would have originally spoken Apothicon, hence why we find it on the summoning key and chronorium created by the original Keepers, suggesting that after the Apothicons were banished into the Dark Ether, their language evolved and set it apart from the original language, whereas the Apothicon/corrupted Keepers kept their original language unchanged. And actually, that's a great place to start. The Apothicon language is logographic, meaning a single symbol is used to represent a word. This is different from, say, English or French, which is alphabetic, meaning many symbols that each make sounds combine to form a single word. A real-life logographic language would be Mandarin Chinese, where a single character can represent a whole word, just like the Apothecon's language. With a Mandarin character, especially for more complex words, they are actually made up of smaller radicals. For example, the character for forest is actually just multiple instances of the character for tree or wood. The Apothicon language works on similar principles, where you can take radicals as building blocks and construct more words. Let's examine the outside of the chronorium. At the top we have the character for zombie, made up of the radicals for harm and change, with it also looking visually similar to the word for human. This makes sense as a zombie is a being that has been changed and now causes harm. Beneath and to the left we have the symbol for ritual. To the right of that we have the symbol for flesh or body, and at the bottom we have the symbol for servant. In the future I might do a full breakdown of the meanings for all of the various Apothicon and Keeper phrases we come across, so let me know in the comments if you are interested in that. But today we just need to know roughly how it works. In Shadows of Evil, the language itself appears most prominently at the ritual site, with the symbol of the 4 sins shown. Additionally, a great many words appear on the Apothicon Rift stone, which we unseal during the main quest and allows us to pack a punch. A final instance is the Apothicon servant babbling some words in the language to us, but if you've seen my video on the unbelievable cut upgrade process for it, you'll be aware that in the final game, this doesn't really amount to much. And if you want to check that out, it will be linked on screen and in the description. You can check it out after you're done with this one. It really seems like a waste to create a whole entire language when about 70% of the words are never even used in the game itself, but originally Treyarch planned for just that. First introduced in Origins, challenges were a recurring theme in the Blundell maps, appearing from Zetsubo no Shima onwards in Black Ops 3, and featuring prominently in the Chaos maps in Black Ops 4. Strangely enough, though, they were missing from Shadows of Evil, a map that would have been genuinely perfect for the system. And the reason why appears to be because their intentions for it in the map were simply too ambitious. The original challenge system, as present in Origins, was fairly simple. Every game, each player has 4 challenges. Spend 30,000 points, awarding the player with free double tap a root beer. Perform 115 normal zombie headshots, awarding the player either a pack-a-punch weapon from a small selection. Capture 6 generators, awarding the player max ammo, and fill 4 chests to capacity, awarding the player with the 1-inch punch melee upgrade, or more commonly known as the Thunder Fist. This was identical in every single match, and once the player had completed it once, this really just became another set of tasks to do in an already expansive main quest, with a little variation. This is the problem they sought to solve in Shadows of Evil to add more variety. Located in various places around the map, similar to the ritual box in Origins being at both Generator 1 and 6, was the challenge board. This was the hub for all challenges to be completed in the map, and took the form of a large stone disc, similar in size to the Apothicon Rift stone, and looking aesthetically similar as well, but likened inspiration to a Mayan calendar stone, or a larger version of John Dee's and Edward Kelly's Seal of Ameth, the stone seal of God they used for their rituals. And yes, the developers really did name drop John Dee again here in this document, which, if you've seen my video on the impossible Easter egg solve, linked on screen and in the description yet again, is the key to the impossible Easter egg. And Dee and Kelly's Enochian language is the inspiration for the Apothicon rituals and their language. Unlike both of these objects, however, all of the carvings on the giant stone would be distinctly alien. The disc itself had planned to have a large outer ring, divided into 3 sections, each with Apothicon writing within. The disc then had a spiral moving towards the center, containing 108 gem stones, which visually I find quite similar to Josiah Shem's device in the Shadvale ending cutscene, and also, I guess, the spork knife upgrade on Blood of the Dead. Now let me get into how this worked. The 3 sections around the outside represented the 3 types of challenges the player could perform. These were standard challenges, skill-based challenges, and progression or main quest challenges. Standard challenges were fairly easy challenges that could be performed during normal gameplay without much thought. The examples given by the developers in the documents are spend X amount of points, kill X amount of zombies, harvest X amount of pods, buy X amount of weapons, ammo buys also count, drink a perk, enter beast mode, beast grapple to X amount of points, kill X amount of zombies as the beast, pick up X amount of power-ups, kill X amount of parasites, kill X amount of elementals, kill a magua. The second category, skill-based, required a bit more thought or ability to undertake, and would be more difficult for newer players. The examples given are the following: get X amount of headshots, get X amount of headshots in Y amount of seconds, get X amount of kills from a great distance to encourage snipers, melee kill X amount of zombies, kill X amount of zombies in Y amount of seconds, kill X amount of zombies at once, such as using explosions or swords, kill a magua in X amount of seconds, may need a round restriction, kill X amount of zombies with a specific weapon, use specific challenging weapon. Finally, the progression challenges are ones directly tied to the main quest. The examples given are complete a ritual, complete all character rituals, transform the world, aka finish the Pack-a-Punch quest, awaken the Eye of the Apothicon, a unique one of these for each of the parallel endgame steps. Interestingly, there is no mention anywhere in-game of this so-called Eye of the Apothicon, but apparently it was one of the several objectives that would occur in parallel during the end phase of the main quest. Seemingly, this was part of an original concept for the step we got, where 3 players have to shock the tram boxes, and a 4th has to shock the keepers. Given that step always felt a bit strange, perhaps it was a last-minute replacement for this original step, as it seems there would have been more alternative versions here. Regardless, the standard and skill challenges were designed to be assigned at random, whereas the quest challenge would always be in an order to match the main quest. Furthermore, when one challenge in one of these sections was completed, a new challenge would appear, and a reward would spawn in a rewards box near the chest, much like in Origins and future maps. But that wasn't all. Remember the spiral that moved from the outer ring into the center of the stone? I mentioned that it had 108 gemstones embedded in the spiral? Well, the idea was that each challenge type would cause a certain number of the gemstones to glow. The numbers the developers were initially intending were 1 for normal gameplay challenges, 4 for skill challenges, and 27 for quest challenges. Each time a challenge from a section was completed, a new challenge was pulled, until the player reached the center of the spiral. At that point, the player would obtain a very powerful bonus, a damage multiplier to all new weapons they picked up from that point, which would be balanced based on the current stage in the game and how long the spiral took to complete. The spiral would then reset. This essentially means that a player would be able to keep a game going forever, always being able to become more powerful, provided they were diligent enough to keep completing the challenges, and were willing to discard their current gun for a new one. Another additional reward the player would get, similarly to the 1-inch punch in Origins, was the Shadow Slide ability that would knock down zombies or destroy them with an energy wave. This is remarkably similar to what became PhD Slider, or the fan-made Banana Collada by Madgaz, which people heavily requested during Black Ops 3 Zombies. So this actually shows this idea was originally in the back of Treyarch's minds before anyone in the community suggested it, meaning they didn't just rip this idea from the community with no credit. But it's not quite clear what set of challenges would have granted the player this. It's possible it was a bonus for completing the spiral the first time. And I really like the idea of essentially having a perk, a unique one, as a challenge. But what about the Apothicon language? No, I've not forgotten about it. So what was it for? Well, given the challenges, it now suddenly makes sense why the language is so expansive. Something that always seemed strange was how Apothicon even had words for seconds, minutes, rounds, number of times, doing things simultaneously, etc. It even has a full set of 10 numbers, which are otherwise never used. In the context of this, though, it makes total sense. This is all the vocabulary necessary to make this system work. Furthermore, if we go all the way back to when Jason Blundell gifted Mr. Waffles with the Apothicon language shirt, we can see prominently the phrase challenge board at the top of the section. For years, this seemed like an incredibly odd and meaningless phrase, but now we know it's because that section specifically pertained to the kinds of challenges Treyarch expected to be endlessly dishing out to players. The fact Blundell gave this to the community as well really does again suggest to me that our finds regarding the possible Easter egg is it, considering these were inspired by Dee and Kelly specifically, and Blundell himself was the one to grant this to the community. This does leave an interesting point unanswered though. While it was used occasionally, the Keeper language saw the same, if even slightly less use than the Apothicon language. However, it has all of the same kind of terms in it. It seems pretty likely that they made the Apothicon language first, and the Keeper language came later, which is essentially what happens in canon as well, like I said before. But if that's the case, why would they make all of the relevant terms for a challenge set if they knew they were going to make the Apothicon challenge board? Stranger still, if the Keeper language came after they had already cut this feature, it means they made all of these challenge terms in a new language for seemingly no reason. This is speculation, but I think it's possible that the challenge system in Zetsubo no Shima, which marked the first time we'd seen it since Origins, may have originally been intentioned to be a second attempt at the Shadows of Evil system, given that they couldn't get it in that map at launch. Moreover, the symbols used in Zetsubo no Shima are actually the Keeper symbols, and we see them all over the challenge pillars, though just single Keeper numbers. However, if you go and inspect Zetsubo no Shima's challenges and the system itself, we can find a 3-category system which, though containing far less dynamic challenges, feels like the leftovers of the original Shadows of Evil system, and maybe they just couldn't get it right twice, so I had to scale back the system immensely. And considering they probably concepted the Apothicon language first, again makes sense why they had the Apothicon language on the outside of the Chronorium and also the summoning key, because they probably created these in tandem before the Keeper language was ever concepted, and then it was just left there and never changed at a later point, and it essentially became embedded in the canon, even if never originally intentioned. Or maybe it was intentioned, due to the reasons I posed at the start. But what do you guys think? Was this system just too ahead of its time? It is a lot like how trials are handled in Black Ops 4 and Cold War after all, but without the language depth. Or would it have turned an already great zombies map into one you could still play daily? I think these would have definitely been great for both Zetsubo no Shima and Shadows of Evil, but maybe it would have been a bit too complex. In fact, that was a complaint of Zetsubo no Shima about the fact it's too complex. People didn't like that you had to do the challenges to do certain steps. Maybe this would have made it even more tedious, or maybe the reason it became tedious was because they actually reverted it to a simpler system in a short period of time, and so they couldn't properly balance it and make it accessible enough when doing the KT4 upgrade or the main quest, etc., that requires certain challenges to be completed. Maybe it was rushed and that's why it became this way. But I really would have liked to see this in the final build of the game. I'll have all of the videos I've mentioned linked in the description, and let me know once again if you want to see that video diving into what the Apothicon and Keeper languages actually mean. I can go far more in depth. This video was just explaining what it was intentioned for from a gameplay perspective and why it was even created in the first place, which I think adds a lot of context and ties further into the impossible Easter egg. Anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not here for latest and greatest Call of Duty news and information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.